Hi everyone, it's Brody from ECS here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about viruses and malware. This is going to be a mini-series featuring several videos on different types of malware and how each one affects your system differently. In today's episode we're going to be covering worms, Trojan horses and rootkits. Let's start with worms. It's important to note that worms are not really seen anymore, mostly due to improved security features in operating systems. What is a computer worm? A computer worm is a type of malware that spreads copies of itself from computer to computer, often via email. It can replicate itself as well without having any human interaction, so once it's been executed, it can just run automatically. It also does not need to tie itself to a particular program on the computer in order to cause any damage. Now that we've discussed what a worm is, let's talk about how they work. Most worms work via a script method, so once the end user has clicked on the script to execute it, it would then email a copy of itself to every single contact in that person's contact list. It would then also edit the Windows registry, which is the back end of Windows, which you don't normally see, to always start up with the system. It can also replace user data with copies of itself, so any Word documents or PDF documents will be lost because they'll be replaced with a copy of the worm. If you think of it, it's kind of like a really early form of the ransomware virus that we'll be discussing in another video. Next we'll be discussing Trojan horses. Trojans share the same name as the deceptive wooden horse that led to the fall of the city Troy, but in computing terms they work in a very similar way. Trojans simply disguise themselves as something they're not, which is to trick the end user into clicking on it and infecting their machine. So if we put this into a scenario, so the city Troy has a wall around it. In this case, the city is your computer and the wall around it is your firewall, a device that's designed to stop any malicious files coming into your city or into your PC. You then have a Trojan horse, which is claiming to be a PDF document. Inside the Trojan horse, you don't have soldiers, you have your Trojan virus. Now, if the virus just walks up to the firewall by itself, it's not going to get let in, it's just going to get told to go away. The fact that it's now in the PDF document, or the Trojan horse, it will then go up to the city wall itself, get let in, thinking it's something real, and then it will then execute its payload and infect the entire city, or PC in this case. Ransomware attacks are commonly used in the form of Trojans, however there'll be more on this in a separate video. Although the Trojan's payload can be anything, modern Trojans act essentially as a backdoor to a person's computer. This will then allow unauthorized access for the person who sent the virus originally to have access to personal information, passwords, bank information, etc. Finally, we're going to be discussing rootkits. Rootkits come in many different forms and they're classed as a type of stealth malware. This will be explained a little bit further on in the video. The root part of the name comes from the traditional name of the privileged or administrator account of a Unix-based operating system, and the kit part of the name relates to the components that implement the tool itself. The primary goal of rootkits are that they will always have root access or administrator access to everything through security vulnerabilities. This is quite bad because that means they can change every single file if they choose to. Rootkits are classed as stealth malware because they're designed to hide the existence of certain processes or programs which may be detected by the antivirus software. So what do? Well, there are a few types of rootkits, and the first of them are designed to work by burying themselves deep within what's called the kernel. We'll explain more about this later, which is the core of a desktop or Android operating system. They're often used for malicious purposes by executing a worm or by opening a backdoor on the device. This makes it extremely hard to find them or remove them, often resulting in having to have a complete reinstall of an operating system. You may have heard me mention the word kernel earlier on in the video, but what is it? So I'll start by saying it's not the man that bought the world KFC. In computer terms, the kernel is the central module of an operating system, which its job is to bridge the system software to the system hardware. So a good example of this is you're in Windows and you want to play a sound. The sound will travel through the kernel and it will be pointed towards the sound card, which is a component for making sound. The reason rootkits target the kernel is because the kernel boots up before the operating system. This means that there is no time for the antivirus software to start up and essentially stop the threat. Now, another reason why rootkits are designed to go for the kernel rather than any other file is because the kernel itself is not on the same storage drive as the Windows installation. The kernel is in a protected section of the system memory, which makes it extremely hard to remove with many different types of antivirus software. Another type of rootkit is called a bootkit. This works slightly differently to the traditional rootkit. They take the basic functionality of rootkit and then extend it with the ability to embed themselves within the MBR, the master boot record, or the VBR, the volume boot record. This means that even after a system reboot, the virus is still active. Bootkits are not only designed to stay in the MBR, the master boot record, but also remain active in the system memory during the launch of a system, therefore making it extremely hard to remove. Thanks for watching the video. I hope it's given you more of an understanding of worms, Trojan horses, and rootkits. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them down in the comments section below, or if you'd like to find out more information, if you go to our website, head to the blog section, and there'll be a whole article explaining more on each section that we discussed. If you want to keep up to date with ECS, feel free to head over to each of our social media pages, and as mentioned in the video, we'll be doing further videos covering other types of viruses and malicious software. Thanks for watching.